Well, good morning. I welcome you to Pulaski County Fiscal Court. As is customary, we like to open up with the Pledge of Allegiance. I've asked Bill Nykirk with us today if he would do that. And I'll ask nobody to kneel, please, during the Pledge of Allegiance. I don't know if you've seen all the disrespect going on in the country, but I ask that you wouldn't do that.
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you, Bill.
Thank you. You're such a sweetheart.
Go ahead and
I don't care what this is.
call this meeting to order. First item on the agenda will be the approval of the minutes from our previous meeting. You've received a copy of those. What would be your pleasure?
Motion. Second.
Motion and a second to accept the minutes. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. All right, next item on the agenda then, I've got with us Bill Nykirk to speak about our county insurance.
Thank you, Judge. I passed out the paper for all of you to look at. The good news is no change. Price stayed the same on all products. I contribute that, well, for the last 3 years, the rate has either come down or stayed the same. And I contribute that to your employees. They have managed their health care well. You know, for years we have these meetings and talk to them how to use the health care, how not to use their health care, and it's paying off. It's paying off in the premiums that we're seeing now. I compliment you all as employees. They're doing a good job. They don't run to the emergency room every time something happens. And you got good people. You got good people that understand health care and how to make it work in our county, and we're helping them do that. But again, you know, the medical is no change at all. I mean, it's the exact same plan we've had for several years, and the price stayed the exact same thing. Nothing's changed. The colonial didn't change. Life insurance is also the same. So it's easy for me this year to come in and say, you know, if it's your all's pleasure, we can just stay the same insurance we have with Humana and go on for another year and keep our fingers crossed for next year. Any questions y'all have for me?
Make a motion, we keep the same plan with Nykirk as our agent.
Second. We have a motion and a second to renew this insurance. Any further discussion? All in favor?
No.
Any opposed?
Thank you all.
Thank you, Bill.
We'll get together and talk when to do it. Appreciate it.
And I've got next, we've got Alan Crawford with Reed Brothers.
I thought you'd flown the coop. I thought you'd flown the coop while you were hiding back there.
You have before you there the proposal from One Beacon Insurance and Kentucky Employers Mutual, quoting the same coverages from a liability standpoint and increasing exposures. We had a net 30 new vehicles that was added during the year. We did have some changes, but that's the net. Increased property values around $3.6 million total. And we had some increase with the budget, brought the premium for that coverage to $533,987.14. On the workers' compensation, our premium is $195,915.85. We have had some claims activity on the workers' compensation. We've been running about 30 claims a year on average, so we need to work on that some. And that it took the experience mod up to a 1.14 in lieu of a 0.8 or 0.97. So we had 17 points of the workers' comp increases due to claims activity. And then I have presented an optional coverage for risk and recovery quote, which is a cyber liability protection of $1 million with a $10,000 deductible at an annual premium of $4,594.26. We've never had that before, but that is an up-and-coming situation with personnel security on your, or personal security for your private information on your individuals, employees, and other folks that, where we could have a situation that we wouldn't have coverage. The package proposal of the 533 does include a 4% across the board increase in building coverage, which we hadn't done in a few years. So I would recommend that we work with the proposals that we presented. And we've worked hard trying to get the auto schedules in line. We had a lot of changes that's been made during the year with some new vehicles and so forth. Does anybody have any questions?
When does this decision need to be made? Is it?
It's October 1st. Renews every year, October 1st.
It's the first I've looked at this, so I didn't know if you all had seen these yet or not.
No, I've not seen it. This is the first I've seen it.
And the reason being is, I know, I mean, not blowing Alan's horn, but it takes the underwriters for these insurance companies until the very last minute to get all the information in and for Alan to work with them and show them what has been changed or what might reflect that they don't see. And that is why it is a last minute thing. If you all remember, it is kind of a last minute thing every year.
Mainly, the decision was because of the auto schedules. We've been trying very hard to get the auto schedules cleaned up. We do make changes during the year for you, but with so many departments reporting, we finally feel like we've got a handle on the auto schedule. So this should be different going forward. That's been the main hang-up, is getting information from the different departments to make sure these schedules are correct. You know, like Sheriff's Department's a little bit different. They don't have that many vehicles, but when you start looking at all the fire departments and so forth, you get into a lot of vehicles that's been there for a while, and we feel like we've got a handle on it now.
So what was the reason for the 4% increase? Was that,
We haven't gone up on the property values of the courthouse or any of the properties in 3 years.
okay, and the vehicles as well, or?
Well, the vehicles is where you change vehicles and bought new vehicles and so forth. So the vehicle is just purely by what you guys have added during the year.
The 4% increase was the amount of coverage on the buildings.
On the actual
correct?
buildings, correct.
Do we have a choice but to accept it if it's gonna if we're not gonna have another court meeting before we?
Looks like we're under the gun to. So we do. Entertain a motion if y'all want to accept this.
Motion.
Second. Motion and a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Could you include,
Like Reed Brothers, the agent.
thank you, Mike.
Put that in the motion.
And also, do you want to include the additional coverage that we quoted for the risk recovery quote? Information risk recovery quote. We have not had that before. But as you guys know,
$4,000 for the internet coverage, is that?
Basically, if someone hacks into our system and breaches our employees' social security numbers, et cetera, it protects us from that, any liability. Am I
it
correct?
would give you coverage for paying for monitoring for that employee or wherever the information's come from, and it would also pay for a couple of years' worth of credit reporting to where they could monitor their credit. So it's a new coverage that's come about, and I wanted to present it to make sure, give you the option on that.
All this fraud going on, probably a good thing. Make a motion that we do that too.
Second.
We have a motion and a second to.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed? And then you said we need to make a motion just to name Reed Brothers as
Reed Brothers is
agent.
the agent.
We have a motion for that? No. We got a motion? Second. Second, any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
Okay. Good. Okay, we'll talk about this here. I think we should. We've got an old business, we discussed the hunting ordinance at Pulaski County Park last meeting, and we said we were gonna try to bring together an ordinance for review. Doesn't mean that we'll accept this until we can discuss it, but y'all have got a copy of that ordinance in place. Martin, you wanna summarize?
I will. Of course, the original ordinance regarding the park was 710.1, and that was the ordinance that designated the park as a no hunting area and with no firearms. And then the law changed and allowed firearms or removed that restriction. So in February 2015, you all passed 710.2, which took out the firearms restriction and just designated the area as posted property and no hunting area. Then at last court meeting, Magistrate Wilson brought up a proposal to amend the ordinance and allow hunting in Pulaski County Park. So all I did was add change the third paragraph, and I'll read it. And of course, you can discuss it if we need to. If it's not the language the court wants in it, well, we can take a break, and I can make the changes if there are any. But paragraph 3 says, the above area is hereby designated posted property as a no hunting area, with the exception of that portion of Pulaski County Park which is situated to the northeast from the center line of Porter Creek, and which is further identified by the red section on the map attached here to and incorporated herein by reference, designated proposed open hunting area, plus or minus 240 acres, bounded on the south by Porter Creek and the north by USACE boundary line, end quotes, which designated section shall be exempted from the posted property no hunting area restriction applicable to Pulaski County Park. So you've all got a map that is attached to the ordinance. And Price, you've got my big one.
Well, the color is sometimes easier to understand.
So the red area, and this is kind of what y'all talked about, is the area on you don't have a color copy maybe, but it's the area on the shaded area with the cross lines. But that, from what I understand, from what Alex Godsey said, that Porter Creek is kind of a natural dividing line. And so that red portion, which is about the 240 plus or minus acres, would be that portion that would be opened up for hunting. And that was what my understanding was that you all discussed I was here. That's what I understand that you wanted the language to say.
If y'all would, let me kind of give a little history, because we've got a lot of calls this week, and I know they've been calling in, and I think they've been calling because of, I'll just say, activity on Facebook has got everybody's dander up, and so we've been getting calls saying we don't want hunting in our park. And let me just clarify what we're dealing with. There has always been hunting allowed in this area of the Corps of Engineers property. Even before we took on the park, there was hunting going on there. We had originally a little over 500 acres that the Corps gave us for Pulaski Park, and in 1985, the court made an ordinance that said no hunting allowed. Well, in 2007 or 8, I think we took on an additional 240 acres from the Corps that was going to be included in the park, and we were going to start developing trails in those. Well, there was trails developed and there was hunting going on simultaneously in that area for all these years. Well, we noticed that in 2015, and that's when we brought to the court, we need to make this, congruent with what we have in place. And so we added that ordinance in 2015, and now it wasn't a problem until we put signs up. And then once we put signs up, then we started getting some kickback on everything. So what I want the public to understand is, whatever we do here, this is a very remote part of the park. It's not the area where the shelters are. It's not the area where the playgrounds are and the beach and the campgrounds. It's not that area. It's in the very remote area out by Piney Grove Road. And what I also want the public to understand is our park property is surrounded on 3 sides by private property. And they can hunt on private property right up next to our trails, because our trails go to the very perimeter of our property. So private property allows hunting right next to our trails. So there are going to be guns out there and hunting going on near those trails. So I want the public to understand that and be cautious about that. What our issue is when we started this federal process with these trails, we committed to keeping those trails open, and we're not allowed to shut those trails down for any reason under our agreement, which, I don't know if you all were here when they started that or not, but we're not allowed to shut those trails down because we've got federal grant monies. So I guess we're left with 2 options really. And the one option is open it up entirely to hunting, if you want to do that, or if we open it up and want to put some sort of restriction on what type of weapon is allowed to be used for hunting. And I think it's been mentioned that maybe we should open it up with the exception of no high-powered rifles in that area. That might be a good compromise, because those are the most dangerous weapons that can be used in that area. So in summary, I feel like you either have to get rid of hunting altogether or you have to allow it with restrictions. But I don't think you're going to eliminate the fact that people hunt in and around that area just because there's private property all around our trails.
Can I make one other comment or two for the court to consider in addition to what Judge Kelly said? Number one, and kind of touching on what he said about the grant monies, you'll note, and if you can't see it on your black copies, I think you can. There's a black line that runs along up through that shaded area. That black line is actually one of the trails. It is the Piney Grove Trailhead. So there is an actual trail running up through that area. So that's the first thing you need to know. That's not an area that doesn't contain any trails.
How much trail is there there?
I don't know
It's
for
about
sure.
a mile from the swinging bridge up to the trailhead,
Up
and
to the
then
trailhead.
approximately a mile in that loop there.
Around. The other thing, and I'm giving you guys all the information that I think you need to make as your representative, to make an informed decision, which is my legal obligation. In the grant agreement, the memorandum of agreement, at subsection 2C, it states, upon project completion, the local agency, which is you all, shall operate and maintain the project under the following conditions. One of those conditions is facilities shall be kept reasonably safe for public use. So the reason I brought up about there being a trail up in that area is that's a public use trail. I don't know how much use it gets. I've never been up in there, but there is a trail in that area, and you have an obligation under this memorandum of agreement to keep that trail, as well as all the other trails, reasonably safe for public use. That is your obligation under the agreement. From a liability standpoint, somebody asked at the last meeting about I think you did, Judge, about what's the liability. obviously, if someone gets hurt out there from an individual who's hunting with a shotgun, a rifle, an arrow, or whatever, that person who fired that shot is going to be legally responsible. But the court's going to get sued also. I mean, you're the, quote, deep pocket. You got insurance.
Question for Alan there, is our insurance reliable that if they do get shot in there?
It's not excluded under the policies. The only thing, they could come out and do some loss control in the area and say, hey, we need to do this, this, or this, but there's no way we'd want to have that excluded on the policy and leave you guys exposed. But it's not excluded on the policy.
One of the things that makes it attractive for liability is when you build a trail or anything like the park and you open it up to the public for recreation, it's kind of like you're saying, come on out, this is all ours, we've built it for you to use, and then if something happens, I mean, you're basically responsible. It's basically an attractive, I don't know, if nuisance maybe not be the right word, but basically that's what you're dealing with. So I think that's where the court's increased liability may come from, is that you've built this public area for folks to come and enjoy primarily with regard to the trails and outdoor recreation, it wasn't specifically developed for hunting, I guess is what I'm saying. So that I think could increase the potential liability to some degree. And then the last thing I would say is, and this is what an attorney would say or anybody else, it's involved in the litigation, and the judge mentioned it, 3/4 of the park is bounded by private property, right? And so people can hunt right up to the edge of the park. The difference is if a hunter shoots someone from that private land who's out there utilizing the park, there's no liability on the county for that because they're hunting on private property, not on park property. So I would just throw all those things out there for you to consider with regard to everything else.
Can I make some comments?
Yeah, I think under this circumstance, if you'd like to approach the microphone, I'll allow that.
I'm Dale Weddle. I was project manager for this original project with Judge Floyd's office back in 98 and 99 when we added the property on. I've been traveling out west for about 3 weeks, and I've followed this on social media and in the papers, and there's been a lot of inaccuracies put out there. I think I could help clear a lot of that up. I haven't had a chance to go back. I've got a lot of the original archaeology studies and things that we conducted when we first put the trail system in. I was also troop committee chair for Nancy Troop 727, which built a lot of the original bridges in there. So when we first talked to Craig Shue with the Corps of Engineers, the amount of acreage that was added on was 337 acres. So your map is somewhat inaccurate as to the amount of acreage that was added on. At the time, we posted it very, very well as to what was open to hunting and what was not open to hunting. And the Corps was very adamant about leaving it open to hunting. There's hunting and biking and hiking coexist over literally millions of public acres across this country without any problem whatsoever. And there's actually been hunting on this property right up until last year. I hunted on the property last year. No one was, the general public was not really aware that you passed the 2015 ordinance. So I think it's really telling. A lot of people that hike and bike have been concerned about hunting and have been under the impression that it's going to be opened up to hunting, when in fact people have been hunting right alongside them all the time. So I think it's really telling that there's not been any problems. But I'd be glad to sit down and kind of discuss some of the original intent. The only thing that concerns me today is your map and you're excluding.
I didn't prepare that. Alex Godsey prepared it and gave it to me, so that's,
Yeah, you're actually excluding about 100 acres or over 100 acres up in the Hamby Hollow
was that
area.
surveyed back, when did you say, the late 80s?
90s.
Late 90s. It was 98, 99
Was
when
there
we
a
first
survey
did.
done back then of that additional area? Do you
What
know?
we did at the time was talk to Craig Shue about just getting a right-of-way for the trail after we got the $40,000 grant. And what Craig said is, let's just go above your swinging bridge and draw a straight line across the top of the core property, and that'll be the new park property, so.
Well, and I think, I don't know, and that's why I guess I put in I did two things to try to clarify the area, since I didn't have a legal description, not that anybody would have paid any attention to that or would understood it, the bounds and the meets and all that. I mean, if you don't put signage up, none of us know where we need to be or don't need to be, but.
I saw the map that was in the paper. I saw what he has right there.
But whatever acreage that is, I did two things to try to describe it in the ordinance. I put the plus or minus 240 acres, which is what Alex gave me, and I assume he got that from some method of topography measuring that you can now do, by Google Maps or whatever.
That's what it says right there at the moment.
Well,
Okay,
for
and
any
then,
of
and
you
then
that
the
have
second
walked the
thing I
tra-
did is I
for any of-
attached a copy of
Any of you that have
this.
walked the trail, if you start from Pulaski Park and go up the original trail, when you come to the first Scout Bridge, which was, by signs was called Hale's Bridge, is where the hunting started. That's where the new property line started. And you had a real narrow corridor there for anybody going from property over into the new annexed or the expanded part. It's only about a 200-yard corridor, which is very easily. We had signs all up and down that little branch there on each side, identifying what was open to hunting and giving people heads up that we're going over into the hunting area. One thing that happened, and I think at some time during Judge Bullock's tenure that were taken down, but we had some very large maps on each side on the Piney Grove area that was posted there that showed what was hunting and what was not open to hunting. But my only concern today is your map is excluding over 100 areas.
I don't know how much acreage it is, that's, as I was gonna say, that's why I attached the map to the ordinance, and you're welcome to look at it if you want to. I don't know how many
I know
acres
from
it is.
What you have is just everything on the far side of Porter Creek. Yeah.
Yeah.
Which is excluding some that should be still open to hunting.
This was a natural dividing line, according to Alex.
According to Alan,
Alex Godsey. He's the one that's basically been responsible for all the trail development and worked with the grant folks. And I think he was
Alex is
looking.
mistaken.
He was, well, you can take that up
We're
with
not
him.
saying we're taking in the whole thing that was tucked in 89 or 98 or whatever you said. We're looking at taking in this portion of it now.
For hunting, allowing that portion,
Allowing that
so there would be a
portion for hunting.
natural boundary
Whether
where
it's 100
hunters
acres
would
more or
know
less.
you can hunt on the northeast side of this, but not on the
Yeah,
south.
what I'm saying is there was a very good boundary at this branch
There you go.
that has a very short area. But, one other comment on and I'll hush, I mean, I could talk all day on this. I'm 65 years old and my family's hunted in that area. I'm third generation and we've hunted in there. We don't leave any footsteps. Hunters don't leave any footsteps in there. You can't go in there and see where there's been any effect from hunting. And I could really get into the contrary side of that, but I don't want to do that today. But there is a third option. If you're going to identify this property here, I'll give you a third option. Why don't you give that property back to the Corps on that side of Porter Creek and just let it revert back to Corps of Engineers? Then you've still got hiking and you don't have any liability.
The problem may be that, and I don't know this for certain, but that trail that was developed with grant money is going, if any of this grant money was used on that trail, then it's going to prohibit transferring the property back without everybody's agreement. Department of Local Government, the feds, the Corps, the county. I mean, there's a lot of moving parts to giving it back.
It'd be a real good resolution of all of this, is all I'm saying. Well, I thank you for your time. I mean, I really enjoyed working on this project, and with 20 years, we've not had one single issue. I don't know why this came up. I really don't. It's unfortunate that it came up because you've got a lot of folks that don't read the papers that still not aware that this is going on. I mean, you've got hundreds and hundreds of people that use that and have used it for generations, and you're just going to continue to have a lot of upset people, particularly if you close this Hamby Branch area that you're talking about closing, which is one of the better hunting. So I thank you for your time. And
Where is the Sandy Branch area on up in here somewhere?
I could show you. This is a poor map. I don't think I could even show you that. Yeah, I can. It's pretty much right in here. All of this right here.
This is all walking trails and bike trails.
Well, I know what it is, but it's still open. It's been
I have
open to hunting all the time, and they've never seen it.
I have a question.
I hunted in there last year. Yeah.
You didn't hear that.
Well, we've got Carl Kleiner back here, as Fish and Wildlife Commissioner. I don't know if he's had an opportunity to make any comments, but Carl, you know where the Hamby Branch area is. You've hunted that, haven't you?
I know where that is. I hope there's some compromise that can be made between people who want to hunt there in the past and with the counties.
It's actually, it actually swings around as you come down over the
Official
trail.
stance on where they are because it's county property. You know, if it was, and the Corps really, the Corps turned it over to the county, so.
I don't know.
think that
I don't hunt out there, and I
Fish
don't
and Wildlife
know,
really has a
you know.
fight or a dog in the fight as far as.
I know Paul
what
Fox
they'd
called me,
like
and
to
they
see done
said,
with
go,
their-
he went up
whatever.
Fort Creek somewhere.
They're really out of it, the way I understand. When I talk to them, whatever the county comes up with is what's going on.
Am I correct in saying that the Fish and Wildlife will not enforce any ordinance there? No hunting ordinance? That's what I've been told.
Well, I think that's all.
I mean, he knows this thing
I don't know if there's any precedence has been said about non-enforcement of laws or asking the sheriff's office to do it.
Knows that thing.
Again,
He's good.
I don't know if that's not an official statement. It's an office.
What would we need to do to get an official stamp?
Dale, the one thing, and again, you know, I don't want to give you legal advice. I'll leave my duties to the court here, but and it's kind of what you're asking Deputy Kleiner there. I'm a little concerned about folks hunting out there right now.
I don't hear well, Martin. and
Oh, I'm
not-
sorry. I'm a little concerned with folks hunting out there now in light of the ordinance that was passed back in 1984 that designated all the park area a no hunting area, even though, like you said, there was additional acreage taken into the park and that the county had a leasehold on after that ordinance was passed. I still believe that that ordinance would encompass all of the park property whenever it was taken in, so.
Well, we may have neglected to change that, but I mean, everybody was in total agreement.
Yeah.
The Corps, their concern was that we post signs and make it very clear,
Right.
which we
Well, I
we
think
did.
my legal opinion right now is, as it stands, that the entire park is a no hunting area, including the part over on Piney Grove because of because of the prior ordinance and then the 2015 ordinance.
I couldn't argue with that. I read the ordinance.
Yeah.
I mean, you couldn't argue with that.
Yeah.
I could just, that ordinance was there when we added on and.
Yeah.
And we certainly intended
For that
for it
to be a
to
no
stay
hunting.
open for hunting.
Yeah.
We wouldn't posted signs all over
Sure,
it.
I understand.
That's the main thing, that it's all posted. If we do this thing, we gotta make sure people knows where they can and where they can't. You know, hunt. You know.
Okay, well, that,
Thanks for your time.
I guess that will qualify then as our first reading. Now, what we'll need to do is just have permission to advertise a second reading, and then we can discuss, we've got a couple of weeks to discuss this and come to
So changes can be made,
Yeah, we can certainly amend the
because I know we
ordinance.
mentioned the hypergraphics and those letters.
Are we gonna change the boundaries back to where, like Dale said, there was another 100 acres in there or something, or are we just gonna keep this spot we got?
Well, I'll have to find it. There's actually, when he says there's 200 plus acres, but it also included parts of the Blue Trail, and it was adjacent to the Green Trail. So we need to clarify that so you all can look at it a little bit better, but.
I think you need to get Dale on this, whatever you're gonna sit down and look at, you need Dale involved in this.
He knows much better than anybody I know.
He knows it inside and out.
I'll be glad to, I'm retired, got all kinds of time.
Yes, sir.
Okay, so that'll be our first reading. We just need I need a motion, a second to advertise for a second reading.
Motion.
So,
Motion, a second to advertise for a second reading. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Get my big maps.
Opposed? Okay, I'll just reiterate to the general public, just know that there is private property all around our property, so don't go out there thinking that you're not gonna be encountering hunters, because they are right next to you there. So unless you're very familiar with the boundaries of the park, you should still proceed with caution.
That adds something, when you say the boundaries, that it's private land, and I'm not trying to be difficult for once, but if we have someone hunting on our land, and this would be a question for Alan, if we have someone hunting on our land and they shoot somebody by accident on private land, would the county be liable?
Potentially, yeah.
Great, okay.
Yep.
Okay.
All right, well, let's move on then. Brings our next item on the agenda is new business. I've got an item here that's not on the agenda. I'd like to add Martin Shearer to today's agenda, though. He's come from our Somerset Pulaski Development Foundation. If you would care to address the court, Martin?
Thank you, Judge. Good morning, all. I have a couple of handouts.
Thank you, Martin.
About
I think you text one thing about that, didn't you?
Yeah.
Here you go.
thank you, sir.
Thank you very much.
to review the past year of activities, and I've divided this into activities, announcements, and projects for the Somerset Pulaski County Development Foundation. And I'll just quickly go down the list that you have and address some of them more specifically than others. As sponsor of the Work Ready community effort in the committee here in Pulaski County, we were recertified this year, so for another 3 years we are going to maintain that designation, which is significant and helpful. We also sponsor the Work Ethic SEAL program for high school juniors and seniors to help prepare them for the workplace. And the Lake Cumberland Regional Training Consortium, which used to be the Pulaski County Industrial Consortium. It's a training, a group that puts on training programs. The members are local industries and companies. They're half-day programs, they're a bargain, and that has grown in recent years. We participate, I participate as a board member of the Lake Cumberland Regional Chapter of KY Fame. KY Fame is a group, it's a program that utilizes workers to go to school and to work both at the same time so that they can get training and education over a period of time and hopefully come out debt-free at the end. Along with that, we work with the Pulaski Area Technology Center, the Lake Cumberland Area workforce development arm especially. We support the Young Entrepreneurs Academy. We have programs with the Center for Rural Development and SCED. And all of these programs that I've mentioned so far and other efforts, but with these organizations, is focused on workforce development, skills development, because today, in today's environment for prospects to locate here and for existing industries to expand, workforce development is workforce skills and available skills and workforce at the top of their list. They're higher than low taxes, they're higher than available property and buildings. Workforce skills is the first thing they look for. So we're trying to be a community that shows that we are gaining on the skills gap that a lot of communities in the state and across the country are faced with. There are jobs without the skills to meet them. There are folks without jobs that need the skills to qualify for jobs that are available. Trying to bring those two things together is the main effort of most of the efforts that we've made with these organizations I've named so far. We continue to have a relationship with the KAED, the Kentucky Association for Economic Development, which works with the Kentucky Cabinet for Economic Development and has a program called Kentucky United that is a program in which we visit cities. Representatives that are a part of this group will visit a city and talk with brokers, site selectors, companies that may or may not be looking to expand or relocate or go to a new community. At the same time, while we're in those cities, Detroit, New York, Dallas, a lot of different cities, if there are companies with local ties to Kentucky and to cities that are to communities that are participating in this program, we'll treat them at a luncheon. So all of this is an effort to build and grow communications and relationships with existing industries as well as potential prospects. Then we also have been continuing to maintain the 5 buildings and more than 230 other acres that are in our name. And this year we finally, after some effort that I spoke with the court with many months ago now, the disposal of a rail siding and its incumbent liability was accomplished finally. So we have that off our shoulders and that worry gone. Then under announcements, we've had within the past year 4 announced additions. Sheltech, Summit Aviation, Camtex, EMS, and TTAI have all announced either locating here or expanding. 195 jobs there. Actual employment as given to us, numbers given to us by the state from July of 2016 to July of 2017, there's 694 jobs, people working here in the county more than the previous year of July. Then we also participated in, to a lesser degree, with other additions, Courtyard Marriott, Continental Refining, and Summit Meat Processing. We weren't as involved with them as some of the others. We have pending, expected to have 4 announcements of expansions or locations by the end of the year over the next 3 months. That would be an addition of 120 to 180 jobs, at least over a 3-4 year period. The 180 end of it would be. So we're hoping that we'll hear those soon. I expect one of them by next week, the smallest of the group, and definitely a second one at the end of October. The other two, I still expect by the end of the year. They've committed orally, but are not announcing until a later date. Then other projects that we've been spent time with and been involved, resources with, Valley Oak traffic flow improvement. Valley Oak complexes out 461 is an area that employs close to 3,000 people now in that area, and there's more coming, we expect. So the traffic situation has been difficult, to say the least, especially at shift change time. And this past year, we completed an improvement, a rebuild almost of the front entrance, the only entrance to one side of the complexes where TTAI and Gatormate are, and Hendrickson. And then in addition, we've started just recently a back entrance out of that side to help relieve some of the congestion as well. We've been working to seek a redesign with the federal and state governments as well to seek a redesign of and improvements for Highway 461 that these parks both exit off of and onto. And then with the addition of Summit and a second building up there by it in the on the tech side, on the west side of the park, Coyne Road is getting more semi-truck trailer traffic and is not equipped for it, so we're seeking to have that widened for semi-truck uses up as far as the lineman training center, which is a few hundred feet up through there, but we've been working to try and get that accomplished as well. We've also had efforts to improve infrastructure at the Valley Oak complexes, and that's in several different areas of sewer, electric, gas, for different reasons at different times. But with that area growing, having grown and continuing to grow, there are needs that we're looking to try and find some funding to do even more infrastructure improvements out there. But at this point, because of things that have the electric folks want to expand their substation, and we've been working because they need to come across some property there. Been working with them, as well as gas lines that need to be moved for the building of the roads and other things like that. Just a bunch of small efforts, or not small really, but several different efforts. We have begun a program to identify potential brownfield sites for improvement. And if you're like me, when I started this, brownfield, when you think of brownfield, you might think of environmentally problematic properties. That isn't always the case. Properties can qualify for some funds to help improve them if they're just underdeveloped, or they used to be active and are somewhat abandoned or out of use. So we've started an effort to identify potential brownfields properties in the county, and then we'll carry it to another step of trying to see if there's a way to revive or revitalize some properties that have a potential for improvement. So that's what that effort is about. We supported the airport a couple of times in various ways, and we participated with the community college in their effort to get an economic workforce development grant. We participated at $50,000 level for that. And then finally, we've spent some time on a potential organization restructure, and I have here that I'll pass out as well. Our group board supports the effort to form an industrial development authority structure for economic development efforts in the county as a whole. And this resolution was passed by them at their last meeting last week, which basically encourages the court and the city to come together and move forward with, I guess, let's see, there's a word in here I'm looking for, expeditiously form this new Economic Development Authority. So it just sort of states the position of the board as to that organization, to an organization. And so that is something I wanted to share with the court. And that concludes my report, unless there are questions.
And Martin, I want to add something to that, because I know last court meeting, we had a question about a bill, and I've since spoken to you about the bill for the leveling docks. Could you address that with the masters that may not be familiar with that, because I haven't had a chance to speak to each of them individually?
Well, it's a repair and partial replacement of loading docks that are existent at Capstone, an industry that occupies the old Palm Beach building on Bourne Avenue, and a second building that's on that property that faces, actually is down on Marydale. They currently employ about 40 people, and we hope and expect that they're going to move some folks from another facility soon. But this is something that is in need of repair and improvement for safety reasons as well as economic development reasons, because those folks are on a year-at-a-time lease right now, and we're afraid they're going to look for a different location if we don't keep theirs in working order. And we were under the impression that we would send the PO into the court, and it would be paid out of the budgeted amount that we understood was there for industrial development. Does that explain? Does that answer your question?
Yeah, that, to me it does, and I want to give these masters an
what I was
opportunity.
under the impression as well.
And I was under the impression that it needed to be brought to you before it was put on a claims list to pay, which is
No,
why.
it's not, he's just asking for a PO for it now.
No,
But-
no, we got the PO. We're asking for the court to pay the invoice, I think. right?
What it was they sent the PO. And at that time, I was under the impression that before I gave out a PO, because once you give out a PO, you're basically almost giving permission to pay. You're giving permission to purchase, which therefore leaves you an invoice that you are obligated to pay. I brought it to your all's attention as I had been instructed, advised.
Instructed, whatever you want.
Advised sounds a little less demanding, but advised, and that is what we are waiting on, is your grant to.
Approval of the PO?
Approval of the PO.
Has the work already been done? Okay.
No, they're waiting, they're
Yes.
waiting for us, right?
Waiting for, yeah, to,
Buy, we already did. We don't restructure that money and put it to where,
No, he's talking about I think Dan, I just overheard there, he's talking about the restructure of SPEDA, is what he's referring to, right? We're close. Martin mentioned that he's asked for this, the board has asked the city and the county to do this expeditiously. I spoke with the mayor yesterday, and he and I are both in agreement that we have everything in place we need to move forward. He wanted to bring that to his council, the first meeting in October, and I figured we could do that. We usually come the day after city council, so we can do that at the same time.
so we got off the subject. We're talking about paying this bill, is that right?
We're talking about approving the purchase requisition for it.
so that then when the work was done and the invoice was submitted, it would be paid.
It will be paid according to our normal bill schedules, yes.
So the funds come out of their money, or?
Correct. It would still come out of theirs.
Now, let me just ask you this, then, and I think the
Follow
question
that,
was, can we
basically.
wait and just, after we restructure, the court will be obligated to fund $800,000 to the new organization for we had an ordinance that we did with our occupational tax last year. So after that point, when we do reorganize, then they'll have their own budget to spend, so I think
They
that
still
was the question.
they currently have their own budget to spend. But to use
Spend
said
it, they have to
funds.
get permission from us.
Correct, thank you.
The money's still there for them to use.
The money's still there
They
for
just
them to
gotta come
use, and it still gets
ask
deposited.
that they need this, and then we can pay it.
Okay, so do we have,
Correct.
then we'll just need a
That
motion
way,
to.
the reason being was, that way nothing has bypassed the court that shouldn't be bypassing the court.
Make a motion.
Second. We have a motion and a second then to approve this purchase. Do we have any further discussion?
It's the 15,000 some odd.
$100, something like that.
Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Okay, thank you. Y'all have any other questions about what he's done in the past year here? Appreciate you educating us.
Appreciate you bringing this
Thanks,
in.
Mark.
Thank you, Mark.
All right. Next item then on the agenda will be picking in the park. We just, it'll be 30th September, right?
Yep,
And
Saturday.
the hours are from, I go from memory here, was it 12 to 9? And we have, we need to get approval to pay the bills for picking in the park, right?
Is there not something in the budget for that, or?
There is, but due to the fact that I did not have the list during our normal bill list, I had to do it this way. Yes, sir.
To approve.
Second.
Motion to second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? All right. We need to set our trick-or-treat hours for this year. The Halloween this year will be October 31st, and we'd like to set our trick-or-treat hours from 6 to 9 on that Tuesday evening. Motion. We have a motion.
Second.
And a second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? Motion carries. Let's see, we have new business. We have a request to bring Cumberland Ridge Drive into the county road system. I'll need to get a committee to look at that road. Mike, and anybody else care to join Mike on that?
It's in my district, but, I mean, I'll.
Probably need to get one of the
I'll
others.
go for it. If that's okay.
Mike and Mike, I'll do that, all right. Thank you. All right, then that will bring us to our department reports. I've got to see the sheriff with us today. Do you have anything to report today, Sheriff? Okay. And Jailer's not with us. Clyde, do you have anything from the coroner's office? Linda, we have something from county clerk?
I do, it's just more on a personal note, and I'll hear some Ross won't be motioning at me up there. One of my deputies that usually does the minutes for us, Alicia Roberts, she was involved in an accident last week, and I would just like to ask the court and everyone here that if you would just keep her in your prayers and thoughts, because she's going to be undergoing quite some extensive surgeries and overcoming all this, so I just
Was
like
she
to.
down there where she was going when it happened?
No, she didn't even get gone. It happened Saturday, and she was supposed to show this horse that actually attacked her, and he's really done a
Yeah, I just
bad
heard that.
number
She just
on her.
told me that. I didn't know it.
Yeah, and she's in UK right now, undergoing
she
some
said.
more surgeries, yeah. So I just ask if you'll keep her in your thoughts and prayers. Thank you.
Thank you, Linda. Public safety, Stacy, you have anything? Road department, Jordan, you have something today?
First thing being approval of your road work.
Motion. Second.
Motion and second to approve road work request. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any in favor?
Yes.
Any opposed?
No, I'm sorry, I was reading.
All right. Motion carries.
And the second thing would be approval for 3,000 ton of various rock for the month of October.
Motion.
Motion, second.
A motion and second for 3,000 ton of rock. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed? At all? That then brings us to Aaron, 911.
Steve, this, back here at the back, you had added that on, but that was half of it, is that correct?
Yeah, that's the,
And, so the other half would need to be on.
all right, let's see what you're saying. This is my half.
Just need to.
Duplicate it.
That's internal, we can split it if need be. Are we talking?
Well, no, only half of it's been ran through.
What's Jason saying?
This is only half of it.
Those 3 roads, the totals on those are
Those are split in half, and it needs
my
to be
half, I guess.
duplicated.
So we need to double that amount.
Will it be done before the next court meeting?
we need to-
Possibly,
Need to have it
just,
through today. That would be my mistake then. I just didn't put yours on there, Jason.
Might make a motion to amend the road work.
This is just half of it, Jason.
That's just my, that's my
Yeah,
contribution.
yeah.
It's half of it.
I mean,
It'll basically be duplicate for Jason.
yeah.
so we need to make a motion that Jason pay the other half or whatever, is that correct?
Yeah, Jason.
It comes out of First District. How about that?
That comes out first district, okay, how about that?
So we have a motion then to amend that in a second. Any further discussion?
Taken care of.
All in favor? Any opposed? I'm sorry, Aaron, didn't mean to
you're fine, you're
interrupt you there.
They did.
I said 2 things. Personnel issue, 911. I have to ask the court. I gave the judge the details on it, and I believe the court has to vote on that, to my knowledge.
Do we need to go in there and talk about this, or just
Oh,
do it?
this is horrid.
You don't think he's talked to the judge about it?
It's
Judge?
suspension. I don't
Yeah.
think they need to.
Yeah,
3-day suspension.
as long as the court knows about what they're voting on.
Right.
Do you know?
I know, I do.
Suspension.
Personnel policy.
Okay. Go ahead, I'm sorry.
I just need the court's approval for that one.
So we have a
Disciplinary
employee suspension, and y'all are aware of the situation, so we just need a motion then to carry out the discipline. Be a 3-day suspension.
Motion.
Second.
Motion and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Uh,
Opposed?
And one other thing with the part-time hire of Andrea Scales.
Yeah, we have Aaron's asked to hire somebody part-time with the potential of going full-time, and he's recommended, and I agree with the recommendation to have Andrea Scales come into that part-time position.
Motion.
Second.
Motion is second. Any further discussion? All in favor? Any opposed?
Thank you, Judge.
Thank you. Let's see. Danny or Misty, either one here? No? Brings us to Adam with our animal control. Have anything today?
Do you know this lady that we're hiring out 911?
Heard of it, yes.
Okay, all right.
Brings us to our treasurer. Joan, do you have anything for us today?
Took care of picking in the park, so nothing.
That all we had was the park deal?
Yes, sir.
And I've got Carolyn with us today, and I'm about to overlook Carolyn here. If you'd like to address the court.
You overlooked Carol.
Just a couple of things.
I thought she was here to fuss about the hunting ordinance, so I didn't.
There will be no hunting. So, anyway, just wanted to talk about our summer. It went very fast, but also very good summer. We found that when we talked with the campgrounds and the marinas and other things, everybody was sold out. Campgrounds were absolutely sold out all summer. And to that effect, we found that the lodging in our hotels and things was down from Memorial Day to Labor Day about 3%. But I think it goes to the fact that so many people are camping and are getting out there, and also finding that it's a cheaper vacation. Now, they're still spending a lot of money in our county, and that will figure into our economic impact. but we found that our campsites were totally sold out all summer, basically. But I wanted to say, fall is here, and the fun doesn't go away when summer ends. I think if you look at our website, lakecumberlandtourism.com, look at all of the events taking place between now and the end of the year, you'll find that there's 90-some different things if you really want to do things. And coming up, in addition to Picking in the Park, Harvest Moon's coming up, Ghost Walk out at Mill Springs Battlefield, Lake Cumberland Classic Hoops. Those are some of the larger events that's coming up. But again, look at our website and you'll see that there's loads of things if you want to just get out and do things here in our county. And it's a wonderful place to be. And then January starts boat and travel shows. So get on the road circuit. So there you are. Thanks so much.
All right.
Thank you.
Thank you, Carolyn. All right, now that brings us to our citizens' comments in. I've got one person on the list, but I don't see him in the courtroom. Tim Hall, you with us today? Nope. So, with nothing else, gentlemen, we'd entertain a motion to adjourn.
Motion.
Second. All in favor? Any opposed? Thank you all.